All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the weekend review and happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. I hope everybody's going to have a good day. I know I'm going to do my best to have a good day on this hallmark of all the hallmark holidays. Oh, yeah. Sorry, last minute rushing around to try and get in here and get everything set up and ready to go. Got my coffee. Yes. All right. Um, Man, I don't know why it feels so strange right now. Mag says, "Why We Vote was really good last night. Ash was on fire." Thank you. It was actually pre-recorded. We went through last night on Why We Vote. We went through Mark Elias. He is a broken man. He is utterly broken. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I would highly recommend you go back and watch Why We Vote last night. And it was definitely interesting. Ginger, because happy Valentine's Day to you and Mrs. CannCon. LFG, let's fucking go. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Keep the faith, bro. Always, always. Yeah, always. Miss Watley. Brian, your beard used to be so dark. We're all getting older. Yes, we are. Father Time is undefeated, ladies and gentlemen. Jackie says, nice sparkly cup. Yes, I actually made this. And it was just a leftover glitter cup. That was like a rage. That was the rage back in the day. And I just take my coffee cup and put it inside of that cup, and then it keeps the cup inside of the cup really cold. All right, let's get started. Before we get into the news, guys, let's talk about my sponsor. And you guys all know that I am the biggest believer in precious metals, silver especially. I've said it over and over again. Told you guys back when I bought silver. My power's saying, what's up? Back when I bought silver, $21 an ounce, man. $21 an ounce. Still a good time now, though. Whether you lean silver, gold, or both, the issue right now is purchasing power, and that's the part that people always seem to miss. Everything costs more: groceries, utilities, insurance, and that same retirement money does not stretch like people think it does. A lot of retirement accounts are still tied completely to paper assets. You got stocks, your bonds, your dollars, and that's great until purchasing power keeps getting chipped away year after year after year, and people don't even realize that they're more exposed than they thought. And that's why some people look at gold and silver as a supplement inside their retirement accounts, not to trade, not to speculate, but just to diversify a portion of their retirement and reduce risk. If you want to understand how gold and silver IRAs actually work, the rules, the structure, what you can and can't do, there's a company called Augusta Precious Metals that focuses on education first, no hype and no pressure. This stays inside of your IRA or your 401k. There's no taxes, no penalties. You're not moving You're not moving everything. You're just learning how this all works. If you want to dig into it, click the link in the description below or text CannCon to 35052 to get your free gold and silver IRA guide. Get informed first and then decide what makes sense for you. And you guys all know I'm a big fan of silver. The wifey told me, why don't we sell some of the silver and, redo the kitchen or whatever? And I said, why would I sell silver? If you have cash laying around, why would I cash in my silver, which is increasing in value, instead of using the cash on hand that is decreasing in value? You're losing interest. Whatever the inflation rate is, you're losing that value on your money every single year. As long as it sits there, money is consistently depreciating. I know that sounds crazy, right? Money is the value which we, that's what we say is depreciating, right? The value, the money of it, but money itself depreciates. So diversify, get you some silver, gold, whatever the case might be. Text CannCon to 35052. Before we get into the actual news, we talked about this on, I think it was on Thursday. James Vanderbeek passed away. Johnny Moxon, I think he had colorectal cancer, just absolutely tragic. I think he was 48 years old. 48 years old. That is horrifying, man. That is really freaking scary to think about that. Oh, I mean, I'm 42, right? And like 48 is not that far away. Oh man. Jess Coke says, Brian, you were right. Ocala weather was nice last weekend. Our flight was canceled Sunday, so we got an extra day, and it was in the 70s. Came home to snow in single digits. Yep. Florida winters, you can't beat them, guys. Can't beat them. We also had this story here. Minnesota Republican candidate for governor Jeff Johnson suspended his campaign for governor in Minnesota after his 22-year-old daughter was stabbed to death. Man, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. And then believe it or not, this seems like it was so long ago, but this is the week in review, right? And yeah, the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. And Bad Bunny did the most atrocious halftime show that you could ever imagine. Just absolutely crazy. So it's funny to think about that. Like it didn't even like the Super Bowl feels like it was a lot longer than a week ago. I mean, this is going to be a long offseason for football. This is going to be like brutal trying to get to next season. I know people give me crap because I watch football. Yes, I watch football. The Bad Bunny halftime show, Turning Point USA, kicked ass, man. Kid Rock, 64.5%. Who had the better halftime show, Bad Bunny or Kid Rock? And TMZ, almost 400,000 votes, and Kid Rock got 64.5% compared to Bad Bunny. And it wasn't just Kid Rock. There were a bunch of others that performed. That was it was really good. Very, very good show. All right. So we got that kind of stuff out of the way. Rigged NFL. Yeah, I don't doubt that. Dawson's up Schitt's Creek now. God. Savage. The chat is savage. Sweet 30-6 says, my husband was 43 when he passed. Lung cancer. Never smoked. I am so sorry. Man. F cancer, dude. F cancer. I'm hoping that copious amounts of cannabis, CBD, everything else, I'm hoping that keeps me off that cancer train. Absolutely terrible, man. All right, let's jump into the actual news and not just kind of the gloomy stuff. CNBC put this out. We got a series on Epstein right here. There was actually a lot of Epstein news, and it's very difficult to navigate the Epstein news because there's a lot of it that's, just absolutely absurd. Not absurd, but it's not like the Joe Biden email that's making its rounds. Like, Joe Biden was replaced in 2019 and he's actually a man wearing a mask. And sure, there's a lot of people that believe that. I would entertain it. I don't believe it, but I would entertain it. But these people are putting it out as if like that's some big revelation from the Epstein files. Guys, it was a tip. It was a tip that called in. Like, you get these tips all the time. I used to get hundreds of them. I don't so much anymore. But following the 2020 election and maybe like within the first like 2 years, I was getting emails like that all the time. People were sending me news stories about Hillary Clinton's at Gitmo and she's permanently shift back into a lizard and like just the craziest stuff. And who knows? I mean, I'm a simulation theorist, so I don't put anything outside the scope of possibility. But you better have some damn good evidence if you're going to come at me with that. And with artificial intelligence, who knows when we do finally get the reveal on, all these things that we never knew about, who's going to believe it anyways with artificial intelligence? Like, that's going to be their kind of like debunked, right? They're missing disinformation. Oh, well, that's not true. That's AI. But is it? It's not. It's going to be very difficult to discern. But anyways, from CNBC, Trump Commerce Secretary Lutnick admits to visiting Epstein Island during a family vacation. He says he had lunch with him. He was on his boat going across on a family vacation in 2012. And he says, my wife was with me, as were my children, and nannies. Had another couple. They were there as well. And we had lunch on the island. That is true, for an hour. And we left with all of my children, with my nannies and my wife, all together. We were on a family vacation. Okay. The problem I have with this story, and I talked about this on Daily as well. And, guys, we got to be equal here. And, if that were Let's think of somebody on the left. If that were like Cenk Uygur, the Young Turks guy, whatever his name is, or Bill Maher, or Jimmy Kimmel, which I think, Jimmy Kimmel will have his days. But that's specifically, like, say it's a Democrat that's completely clean, never had any major issues, and then all of a sudden it comes out that he's went to Epstein Island for lunch or whatever the case might be. We would be all over that. We would be railing on that individual. Let's be honest here. Now, that being said, the concerning part I have is that Lutnick said that he hadn't spoken to him or hadn't cut him out in 2005. I think he said. Let me see if it's in the article. I'm pretty sure it cites his statements about that. It says Lutnick previously said he cut off contact with Epstein after 2005, years before Epstein pled guilty in 2000. Good job, editors. To a state level charge of soliciting a minor for prostitution. So this was, in fact, after the conviction or the plea deal that Epstein took. And again, the concerning part here for me is that he went there with his wife and family. Like, what business? I mean, I guess Epstein's was a businessman. Nobody knows what business he was really in. We know, but nobody officially knows what official business he was in. But Lutnick was a businessman, right? He did the same thing. So did he have business with him? I'm sure he did. And I just, I'm not thrilled that Lutnick was on the island. But again, none of this has been incriminating evidence. And we'll get to that point here in a minute. We got some more stories on this. Thomas Massey put this post out. This is an email that was uncovered by from Epstein to, I believe it's now been revealed that this was the one to Sultan Ahmed bin Suleiman. I don't want to see Solomon because it's not MBS. All right. There was a Mohammed bin Suleiman that I guess was referred to or something as MBS. Well, anyways, so this guy has this email out here and says, where are Epstein messages him? This is April 2009. So this is after the conviction. He says, where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video, to which Suleiman responds, I'm in China. I will be in the U.S. the second week of May. But I loved the torture video. These people are freaking disgusting. So he is now resigned from DP World in Dubai. It says DP World Limited announces the group chairman and CEO Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem has resigned from the company. So there's one that's out. Got another one that dropped out. This one's interesting. Top lawyer at Goldman Sachs resigns after revelation of Epstein relationship. Goldman Sachs top lawyer Kathy Rumler has announced her resignation after emails in the latest tranche of Epstein files revealed she had a close relationship with the convicted child sex offender whom she called Uncle Jeffrey. Rumler said on Thursday she would step down as the bank's chief legal officer. Does it cover the Obama relationship? Yes. Rumler, a former White House counsel to Barack Obama, struggled to distance herself from the emails and other correspondence which drew media attention after the U.S. DOJ's latest release in the Epstein files. The emails revealed she had a much different relationship with the once well-connected financier before he was arrested a second time for sex crimes in 2019. Rumler had a large number of communications with Epstein from 2014 to 2019, even after the 2008 guilty plea. The communications included advising Epstein on how to respond to a media inquiry in 2019 concerning the alleged special legal treatment that he received because of his connections. So the big takeaway here is she was intimately involved with Barack Obama and the Obama administration and all of that. You had Tim Burchett on Benny Johnson talking about this, and I'll pull this up here for a second.
So the Catherine Rumler is the big news this morning because she resigned from Goldman Sachs. She was Obama's personal White House attorney. Obama's the one who's like sort of skated on this, and nobody's really brought up his name. But wait a second, like the vast majority of Epstein's most heinous crimes took place while Barack Obama was president.
Yep.
Well, Jeffrey Epstein got out of jail right as Barack Obama was being put into office. And all of this stuff was going on, and it's his lawyers, the White House counsel, who's communicating with this pedophile, this convicted, sentenced pedophile, and she's like tee-hee-heeing, doing favors for him through Obama. Obama is like signing executive orders. You can like tie all this back. The Rothschild Bank, like he's like doing all this stuff. And he's like somehow like Obama's getting zero pushback on this. Why is nobody asking Obama, like, why didn't you do something about Jeffrey Epstein?
Because President Obama was created. He's not organic. I mean, you pick this obscure guy from college who has zero records. You have college professors that don't remember him ever being there. And he runs, and and all of a sudden people drop out of races, and he's unopposed, and he goes from a state senator to a U.S. senator to an unknown to being president of the United States because he was created. They found somebody that fit their mold. It's the classic. I went back and watched it a couple of days ago, the Brady Bunch, where Greg was wanting to be a great musician, and he was playing all this, like Jim Croce stuff or something. I don't know. And you look up who Jim Croce is. He was great. Bad.
Yeah.
But he had some kind of ballads that were kind of romantic and sad, And so Greg.
All right. So you got the gist of it there. Burchett saying that he was created. I think most of us would agree with that. And I think at this point, the question is, to what extent was he created? Right. So Burchett is there saying like full blown, like he was created. He didn't exist. Right. The whole backstory to Barack Obama doesn't exist. And I generally agree with that. There's no, real record. The birth certificate is an absolute farce. That thing has been, and they call you, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist if you think that the Obama birth certificate is fake. Just put it in Photoshop and peel back the layers. Look at the fonts, the variations, the inconsistencies in it. That was not his birth certificate. Was he a U.S. citizen? I don't think he was. I tend to believe that he was born in Kenya. But it's interesting that Burchett is taking it even further. The rise of Barack Obama itself is insane. Junior senator. I think he was in the Senate for 2 years at that point. 2 years in the Senate, and somehow you go out and run the most historic presidential campaign. I mean, elections are fake and gay, so don't think I'm, that's tongue in cheek me saying that. But he runs the most historic election ever, the 2008 election, wins as a 2-year junior senator, and just completely tramples the system. Right? It was supposed to be Hillary in 2008 as well. And then, of course, Hillary has to then sideline herself for 8 more years, wait her turn. And then we got Donald Trump, who came in and just absolutely wrecked house. All right. So another interesting clip here was this moment at Ghislaine Maxwell's deposition. Now, she pled the fifth the whole time. But let me see if I can get this queued up at the right moment.
That the committee would continue its good faith negotiations and postpone Ms. Maxwell's deposition pending the resolution of her Supreme Court petition. I will enter as Exhibit 4 a letter dated January 20th, Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, House Rule 10 grant at any time. On July 22nd, 2025, voted by voice to approve a motion directing the chair on July 20th for a deposition and furtherance of the committee's investigation into the actions and enter the subpoena and correspond. Exhibit 2, Marcus, counsel for Ms. Maxwell, stating in short that his client would invoke her Fifth Amendment rights and request for the deposition to occur after the resolution of her Supreme Court petition. I will enter as Exhibit 3 a letter dated August 1st, 2020.
How did I not have this queued up right? I apologize, guys. I did not have this queued up right. I could sit here and go through it the whole time, or I could just explain it to you. But the attorney, David Marcus, jumps in and basically says she's going to invoke the Fifth Amendment this whole time. And she does. That's all she does. 18 minutes of her invoking the Fifth Amendment. But he says something very interesting. And he says, if that she has to invoke the Fifth because she still has habeas claims that are before the court and she can't say anything. But he does say that if she's granted clemency, that she will gladly tell the story that you will not hear anywhere, and that Donald Trump is completely exonerated of wrongdoing, but so is Bill Clinton. And that was shocking to me. So, I think we all believe, I think everybody here believes that Trump didn't do anything wrong. I think most of you guys probably believe in some form or fashion that Trump was actually an informant, snitch, whatever you want to call it, against Epstein, which I don't think informing against a pedophile classifies as a snitch. Snitch is like, your own group, right? You're if you're in a gang, like a motorcycle club or a mafia or something like that, or you're in an illegal gambling operation, not a pedophile ring. That's not a snitch. That's a hero. That's not a snitch. That is a hero. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make here is we all would agree that, that Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong, but Bill Clinton, I mean, granted, there isn't any solid evidence that Bill Clinton did anything wrong, but there's a lot of evidence that he was intimately involved with Epstein. There's pictures and everything else. So I just thought that was really weird. Let's keep moving. We got a lot of Epstein stories. 2 senior Norwegian diplomats being investigated over Epstein links. And this is, and I'm going to butcher these names, but Terje Rod Larsen is the husband of Norway's ambassador. I think it's the current ambassador to Iraq. And I don't know where my highlights on this went. They disappeared. 2 high-profile diplomats are under investigation by Norwegian authorities in connection with their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. Okorim, that's the New Norway Financial Crime Squad, is investigating Mona Jewel, who resigned as ambassador to Jordan and Iraq. That's the other one. I wanted to say Iran, but that would not be a smart duo of countries to be an ambassador to equally. She was the ambassador to Jordan and Iraq. She has resigned from that position, and she is on suspicion of gross corruption, which I think is unrelated to Epstein, but the Epstein thing has to be lingering, right? Notably, she was also one of the, a few diplomats that negotiated the Oslo Accords, and also was the ambassador to Britain and Israel. So some interesting connections there. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I do want to cover this story here and a series of other stories that came out that suggest that, maybe we're not full-blown conspiracy theorists, and maybe Jeffrey Epstein is still alive. Just throwing that out there. Naturally, Nikki says, CannCon, did she F herself with the deposition with what's his butt at the beginning of the term when she said Bill was her friend, not Epstein's? I think you're talking about the interview with Blanche. I don't know. I don't know. Bill did something. She's not fooling anyone. I tend to agree with that. But President Trump did come out and say, I still like Bill Clinton. Remember that? Like, that was 2 weeks ago or a week ago, where Trump said, I still like Bill Clinton. Let me see if I can find that clip. I thought that was interesting. Let me see if I can find this. I still like Bill Clinton. Here it is.
Today, I don't know if you saw it, that the Democrats are already saying, if you bring President Bill Clinton and he has to testify, we're bringing President Trump. What do you say to that?
I think they might say that, but they've already brought me. See, I've been brought. They had me indicted many times. Many times.
And the president had some surprising thoughts about former President Bill Clinton.
It bothers me that somebody's going after Bill Clinton. See, I like Bill Clinton. I still like Bill Clinton.
What do you like about him?
I liked his behavior toward me. I thought he got me. He understood me. He was the one that said very famously that you don't want to run against Trump when there were 18 people. It was 18 people, including me, total. And he kept telling them, you don't want to run against Trump. Run against anyone. Don't run against Trump. And Hillary sort of laughed at him.
Oh man. Maybe Bill Clinton was playing a role. Maybe Bill Clinton was playing a role. Probably not. Probably not. Totally kidding. All right, let's keep moving. I just thought that clip was absolutely fascinating. So here's another story. This will lead into a little conspiracy theory here. Daily Mail statement announcing Jeffrey Epstein's death emerges from files, but it's dated the day before he killed himself. And the document, which was issued by the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, was dated for Friday, August 9th, 2019, and states that Epstein had already been found unresponsive and pronounced dead. The problem was that he was not unresponsive and pronounced dead until August 10th, 2019. It says the memo says earlier this morning, the Manhattan Correctional Center confirmed that Jeffrey Epstein was unresponsive, found unresponsive. There it is. Look at that. Friday, August 9th, 2019. That is, I don't know how they make these documents. I don't know how they make these documents at DOJ or at the U.S. Attorney's Office in this case. But that's very interesting that they would have the date wrong on that. Especially given it's a Friday and a Saturday, right? Like, who wants to be working on a Saturday? Like, if it's Saturday, you're working on a Saturday. Like, I know today is Saturday. I did not want to wake up at 7 a.m. I get to sleep in for an hour, or 8 a.m. I get to sleep in for an hour. But I did not want to wake up at 8 a.m. to do this show. It's Saturday. I wanted to sleep in. And so somebody had to wake up and be like, son of a crap, Jeffrey Epstein's dead. I got to go put out a press release, whoever's in charge of that. And they just put the wrong date. Come on, man. And the whole date, Friday, August 9th, I'm going to assume that it's like some sort of like auto fill. And if Mag says an official document wouldn't have the wrong date on it. I agree. So, I mean, that's just very strange. Now, we're finding out a whole bunch of stuff, about all this. MJ Truth Ultra put this out, this email here that he found. And let me open this up in a separate tab so I can zoom in. Here it is. In order to thwart the media, this is a document from August 12th, 2019. So this is about 4 days. This is an interview about 4 days after 2 days after he died. 3 days if you're the DOJ. In order to thwart the media, redacted employee number 5, Dupree, and Adams used boxes and sheets to create what appeared to be a human body, which was put into the white OCME. I think that's, what is it, Orange County? What's the capital or the county that this took place in? Is it called Orange County? Orange County Medical Examiner's vehicle, which the press followed, allowing the black vehicle to depart unnoticed with Epstein's body. Why would you need to do that? Like, I get what they're doing. I don't think that would be uncommon, but why would you need to decoy Epstein's body? Where was it going? I mean, that is very odd to me. I mean, granted, it was a big story in 2019, but like, it wasn't the biggest story. I mean, 2019? That's really odd. That is really odd that they did that. And that's not the only thing. We've also found out over the last week or two that Epstein was negotiating with federal prosecutors up to 2 weeks before that he was quote unquote suicided. This whole thing is very strange. Very strange. Pam Bondi put out a message from Just the News here. We have pending investigations in our office, Bondi told the House Judiciary Committee when asked whether any more indictments would be forthcoming. Her statement appears in contrast to what Todd Blanche said this past weekend, meaning last weekend. that the department is not considering bringing additional charges related to Epstein. And, I said this on Daily, I think yesterday. I'm not impressed with the assessments or the analysis, right? The interpretation that Just the News has. Just the News is a fantastic outlet, very down the middle. Really a lot of respect for John Solomon's outlet there, but this is strange. That's not what Todd Blanche said at all. Todd Blanche said, quote, "I can't talk about any investigations. I can't talk about any investigations." So you're setting it up with a qualifier. I can't talk about it. But I will say the following, which is that in July, the DOJ said that we had reviewed the files, the Epstein files, and there was nothing in there that allowed us to prosecute anybody. Yeah, I completely agree. There is next to nothing that we're going to see, okay? At least, in the Epstein files that we're going to see. There's nothing in there that we're going to see that directly implicates somebody. Well, not I shouldn't say implicates, because implicate is a very loose word that could be used to convict somebody directly. Like, this is like a slam dunk piece of evidence. You're just not going to get that in the Epstein files. The Epstein files are just, kind of like rah, we want to give these journalists a bone and see where they go with it and keep them fat and happy, right? That's all the Epstein files do. It's naming a bunch of people. I mean, now they've named one of the releases named like 5 people or 4 people that were just put in a lineup. Like they were just randomly selected to be in a lineup. And, is this the guy? Is this the guy? Is this the guy? And they have nothing to do with Epstein, but they were put up there and they got their names redacted, and now they're lumped in with the Epstein files. So it's again, I think what Blanche is saying there is, there's ongoing. Well, I can't talk about ongoing investigations, but there's nothing in the Epstein files that's going to lead to anything directly. Let me pull it back up here. There was nothing in there that allowed us to prosecute anybody. Okay, there you go. That's a very, very specific phrase. Allowed us to prosecute anybody. It might have led to something else that then led to prosecution. Like, so you get an email and you're like, oh, well, let me see if this email's valid. Did this person actually fly there? Check their calendar, check their itinerary, check travel logs. Okay, they did travel there. Okay, now let's see if we can get any other evidence that they were there and what they did there. We need witnesses. We need victims. We need, statements. There's a lot of groundwork. So no, nothing in the Epstein files will lead to a prosecution directly. I keep misquoting this because lead would be an accurate statement. If he said that there was nothing in there that led us to prosecute anybody, that could lead us to prosecute anybody, that would be, I believe, a false statement. But there's nothing in there that allowed us to prosecute anybody. This is an attorney, Todd Blanche. He's an attorney, and he's very deliberate in the words that he uses. And I think that was on purpose. And so then Bondi comes back out this week and says, we have pending investigations in our office, which you can't talk about. And that was why, I think the Democrats knew this when they went into that hearing, and that hearing was an utter shit show. That hearing did not look good for either side of the aisle. The Republicans, well, to be fair, the Republicans that were on Congress actually came out looking the most civil in that hearing. But the Democrats and Pam Bondi looked awful in that hearing. They looked awful. But Pam Bondi can't say anything, and they knew that. That's why they put on the parade, right? They bring in victims to stand back there. And, Alpha, we talked on SitRep about this and got a little spicy. I pushed back on him on this a little bit. But, he does bring up a good point that some of those victims did, further commence, wow, I can't think of the word. But did further the crime, right? They went out there and recruited other girls. And, as bad as that sounds, it's still a crime. I pushed back and said, these were young girls that were, maybe 15, 16, 17, even 18, 19, 20 that had been put in that situation and understand the power and the influence that Epstein has. And, you know, you pair that with the fact that he's paying really, really good and they do some illegal shit. Is it right? Nope, absolutely not. Can I understand it? A little bit. I still think, I still think they committed a crime and I still think they should be held accountable. But at the same time, I can also understand it's really scary to be in that situation. But all right, let's jump into this story, staying on it, because I think this is even more interesting now. House members seek inquiry into DOJ's tracking of the Epstein files research. And you can see this photo here. Let me open this image in a new tab. And Pam Bondi just kind of held this up during the hearing. And you zoom in here, and this is Jayapal Pramilla's search history. Oh, yeah, the DOJ was tracking that when congressmen and women came to see the unredacted files. The DOJ was monitoring what each and every one looked up. They gave them individual logins. They gave them the DOJ computer in the DOJ annex and said, have at it, guys. What do you want to look up? I would love to see the search histories of each and every member of Congress. I would love to see their search histories and see how much of them align with each other, right? Because I think if they align with each other, you have the cover that, this story, somebody had tipped all of us off or briefed us on something, and, we went and looked it up. But, what if it's your own name that you're looking up, right? Like, or somebody that's associated with you, or a donor, or something along those lines. Jayapal Pramila looked up new Brazilian just arrived, sexy and cute, 19-year-old. That a document that says that. Another one says, thank you for a fun night. Your littlest girl was a little naughty. Thank you for a fun night. Your littlest girl was a little naughty. That's in two separate documents. From Kira Dikitar to Jeffrey Epstein, quote, I found at least 3 very good young girl, but we was so tired. I will cover up this week. Meet this one, not the beauty queen, but we both like her a lot. Ugh. Epstein victim list, all redacted. I love the torture video from Suliam to Epstein. Like that one, for example. Like that one was probably an email that like everybody was talking about. And so she looked it up for herself. All the rest of those I haven't heard before. Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force PowerPoint on the Epstein trafficking. And then there's a little mind map down there. So very interesting. You jump into the article and it says the DOJ created records of this research activities while they dug into the files connected to Epstein. Photographs of taken by Reuters that show, Bondi holding up the Jayapal document that we just saw there. Quote, it is an outrage that the Justice Department is tracking members' investigative steps, said Jamie Raskin, who announced that he would ask the Justice Department Inspector General to open an inquiry into what he called this outrageous abuse of power. The Department of Justice confirmed that the DOJ has extended Congress the opportunity to review unredacted documents in the Epstein files. As a part of this review, DOJ logs all searches made on the system to protect against the release of victim information. Members of Congress seeking to examine the files must travel to a Justice Department annex, sit at one of 4 department-owned computers, navigate what he called a, quote, clunky and convoluted software system, and read documents while Justice Department staffers watch over their shoulders. And the last thing, Jayapal, she's pretty upset. She says, Bondi showed up today with a burn book that held a printed search history of exactly what emails I searched. That is damn interesting. Now, what's the difference between what Jack Smith did in Arctic Frost in getting the cell phone data, just the data, not the contents of the call, allegedly? What's the difference between what Jack Smith did versus what the DOJ did? Here's the difference. The DOJ, so in the Jack Smith case, cell phone companies complied with an unconstitutional subpoena. There was no crime that these congressmen were being alleged of. There was no, it was a subpoena that was issued by Jack Smith. Jack Smith knew the subpoena was wrong, but there was a low propensity for lawsuits, for civil action against him for bringing this information or obtaining this information. But that was a quote unquote special prosecutor. I still think that he was, appointed unofficially, unconstitutionally. But he went to a private company to spy on Congress. This was Congress going to the DOJ, not a private company, using the DOJ computers, not a private company, and searching for records that the DOJ is tasked with ensuring people's safety. Can any of this be used in prosecution? I don't think so. I don't like it. Like, say, Congress searches for something and can they use that if, say, a congressman ends up getting charged with a crime in relation to Epstein? Can the DOJ say, hey, they came in and they searched for this particular email? Probably not. I would imagine that's probably protected by the speech and debate clause, because they are doing an official duty. They're investigating this Epstein thing. What's the legislative purpose? I don't know. I don't think Congress should be conducting investigations that are open criminal investigations, but that's just my 2 cents. So the short way of saying what I'm saying is that Congress is freaking out, and they haven't made this comparison yet, thankfully. And not that I know of. I haven't seen it, at least. But yeah, hopefully they get away from this whole, like, they're spying on me. We need the inspector general to look at this. Everybody knows your search history is going to be tracked. I think everybody knows that. And we're not even talking about going to a government computer and using their government computer to ensure that there's no leaks, that no classified information, unredacted, gets leaked out. And if it does get leaked out, you can trace it back to who leaked it. I think that's a genius thing for them to do. It can also lead to an investigation. Just because you can't use that information in a case against somebody, it still can lead an investigation into what is in there, right? So, like, one of those emails says, where'd it go? It says, thank you for a fun night. Your littlest girl was a little naughty, right? You figure out who wrote that email, which is unredacted in this version, I think, and then you can investigate that. And the DOJ might never have seen that email before, but they found it. They got tipped off to it. And who knows? Maybe that's the investigations that are going on. I still firmly believe that there is a very large RICO case going on in the background in regards to Jeffrey Epstein. Let's check out this clip. Lauren Boebert making some waves, talking about cannibalism and all sorts of things.
This seems that it wasn't only the trafficking of young girls, as the narrative suggests, but there are code words that suggest Jeffrey Epstein and his associates could maybe even be engaging in some sort of consumption. Is that human consumption? Are there code words? There's a lot of talk of beef jerky. There's a restaurant called The Cannibal where the owner is listed in some of these documents. Now, that isn't a restaurant that is just proclaiming to serve human meat by any means. But some of this just, it seems that there's a lot of conspiracies that make you wonder. And I saw more emails about torture, and these coded conversations still have a very clear topic that torture was big. It was a big driver for them. And these were sick people doing very, very sick things. As you mentioned, there are many women who are involved in this. You have folks that were working directly for Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Right. And a lot of these women are the ones that are sending emails saying, here's one 10 years old, 11 years old, 9 years old. And it's just very disturbing to see the women who are involved in this as well.
Woo! There's going to be a lot of people, if any of this comes out. Now, again, keep in mind that a lot of the stuff in the Epstein file when Trump says it was a hoax, it very well could be like legit fake AI generated documents. Very well could be. He could also have been referring to a lot of the tips that the FBI had included in there, you know, the calls to the tip lines and stuff. You know, this story that Boebert is telling here, is this one of the tips? Is that kind of where this originates from? I don't know, but it's very interesting that it aligns so closely to what a lot of us have been saying about spirit cooking and cannibalism and Pizzagate and all the other stuff. Did you guys see what Spamberger put out on X this morning? It just dawned on me. Check this out. Speaking of beef jerky in the Epstein files, look at this picture that Spamberger put out. And what the hell is this meat? What is this meat? I don't know. I mean, there's an emoji for steak. They're not. I mean, is that like? Is that roadkill? Did you kill something and you're just a really bad field dresser? I don't know. You dressed it terribly. I have no idea. But yeah, there you go. So Boebert talking about cannibalism, Epstein and cannibalism. I don't think Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know. I don't know. I hope that we somehow get closure on all this stuff, but I don't think we'll ever actually know the truth about all of this. It's bug meat. Jackie says, ain't a pork chop. No, that's for sure. Definitely not chicken. It's definitely beef of some sort. Dead raccoon or a toad frog. Somebody was saying possum, maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't eat that though. And it looks like it's crazy because it looks like if you zoom out on the picture, it looks like she's at like an event or something, right? She's got tents up here. Looks like maybe the Capitol building or the governor's mansion or something behind her. She's got a little tray down here on the side, like she's going to be putting the meat. By the way, what is in that tray? Black something with all that stuff all over there. I'm not eating any of that stuff. Hell no. All right, let's pause for 2 seconds and talk about a sponsor real quick. And I usually freeze when these happen, so it is what it is. Folks, they can freeze your accounts. They can also freeze this account, as in my Rumble account. But they can freeze your accounts. They can shut off your cards. They can lock you out of your own money overnight. Banks do not protect you. They control you. And that's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can own Tether Gold, real gold on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. This is not paper gold. It's not an IOU. This is real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for physical gold. Now that is power. And when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using Rumble Wallet, peer-to-peer and outside the banking system. No permission, no middleman, no cancel button. The wallet is yours forever. All right. And did I freeze? Can't see. Maybe squirrel. Ugh. Hey, ho, ho. Pass the filibuster with a rule changer, you freaking fired. I love that. I'm going to pin that as well. I'm going to pin that message. No, that's a great post right there, Ben Hops. Hey, ho, ho. Pass the talking filibuster with a rule changer, you're freaking fired. Save the act holdouts. We're going to talk about that right now, actually. We're going to talk about, nope, don't close that out. I almost exited the whole thing. We're going to talk about our elections. All right. So this came out this week as well. Fulton County short by over 40 boxes, according to an affidavit, the affidavit that was unsealed, the warrant affidavit. County requests court to order DOJ to return the evidence. And here it is. So this is the emergency motion. This was from Pitts. Okay, so Pitts said that they removed Chairman Rob Pitts, Board of Commissioners. They removed approximately 656 boxes containing the original versions of the 2020 election related materials. But the problem is, in the Curling v. Was this Curling v? No, this is the Sherry Allen versus State of Georgia. Nadine Williams, the director of registration and elections, said that there are over 700 boxes of election materials. So where's the missing 44 boxes or more? Or more? I mean, I don't even think it's or more. The more than 44 missing boxes. Very concerning. I know it might not seem like a huge deal, but maybe the contents of those 40 boxes they deemed weren't relative to the election record somehow. I don't know. Dr. Johnston has posted about this, the vice chair of the state election board. She's on top of it. So, she's a firecracker. Her and Janelle King and Sally Grubbs, they're going to keep pushing. We're going to get it figured out, but very concerning. What else we got here? Oh, I love this. Let's get into this post here. Stephen Richer, he was on Why We Vote about a month ago or so, to quote unquote discuss. When I invited him on the show, I was like, I don't want it to be a debate, because debate has a kind of a negative connotation about it, right? Especially if you're legitimately on opposing sides, debates can get nasty, and they also don't amount to anything. Like, debates in politics now are the most retarded things you could ever imagine. Like, it's just like name calling back and forth, the most cookie cutter, milk toast, opinions about things, and then just going back and forth with like dumb shit, right? President Trump kind of changed the debate stage, in my opinion, and maybe not in a good way. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, that's why we all fell in love with him, because he had a message that we all needed to hear. He spoke on our behalf, and that's great for him. And this is why I say, he might have changed it in a negative way. For him, it was great. It was fantastic, because he spoke what we were all thinking. And I think that for the most part, he aligned with that. The problem is moving forward, the next person that's going to do that might not necessarily be in that same, like, it doesn't feel authentic, organic, right? Like when JD Vance does it, it doesn't feel organic to me. Like when JD Vance, did what was the thing he said about Martha? Like, I can't remember. He said it on 60 Minutes, and like they made that like a quote, and it just didn't feel authentic when I watched it. What did he say? Like, it's not like "damn you, Martha" or something like that, or I can't remember. Somebody in the chat will tell me, but it just felt inauthentic. And so, yeah, I just not a huge fan. G Fontes 19, thank you for the rant. Says must have gone nuts with a meat tenderizer, having hundreds of blades, and may have been cut by a fresh off the boat butcher. I still have no idea what it was. Oh, I think this was a continuation. No, it wasn't. So you're talking specifically about Spanberger. Gotcha. Yeah, that was some nasty looking stuff right there. We'll just leave that at that. Yeah, so here's what he said. He said a few quick thoughts on Fulton County affidavits. One, it's largely based on complaints already made either in court or before the Georgia State Election Board. False. None of the claims have been made before a court. None of those claims have been made before a court and ruled on, especially with evidence. I think the pristine ballots might have been, but all the other stuff has not. The tabulator tapes has not. The physical ballots have never even been inspected, nonetheless presented before court. Courts have been arguing about whether or not they have standing to inspect the ballots, but that is categorically false. The before the state election board is true. However, the state election board does not have the resources to properly investigate it. And so they passed the investigation off to the Secretary of State's office. And the Secretary of State's office, I believe, is a participating party in the grand criminal conspiracy theory. And so, of course, they're not going to conspiracy, not theory, just conspiracy. Of course, they're not going to investigate that properly. And the state election board under John Ferbier in his first hearing as the chair of the board, new chair of the board, like he wasn't on the board at all before that. He came in and did not allow Joe Rossi or Kevin Moncla to argue any rebuttal to Charlene McGowan and the Secretary of State's office. So number one is incorrect. Number two, it says if certain mistakes had a criminal intent, then they could be criminal acts. How does seizing the ballots go to the intent of the actors? Well, there's a lot of things that you can find out when you look at evidence. If you find this logic would be like saying, well, how is looking at a knife going to tell if somebody was murdered with it? Well, is there blood in the grooves? Is there blood on the handle, on the grip? Is the knife, is the tip of it broken from hitting a bone or something? Is the width of the knife, conducive or the same as the stab wound on the victim? This is the same thing you're going to do with the ballots. You're going to go and look at the physical ballots and say, well, we know we were missing 17,000 ballots. There's many claims of that. Do those 17,000 ballots first and foremost exist? And if they do exist, are they absentee ballots that have perfectly filled in circles with no folds? Like this is, I don't understand that argument. Like that's a really bad argument to make. How does seizing the ballots go to the intent of the actors? There's a big difference between, oh, we were off by, an eighth of a percentage point because we just miscounted, and we're off by 17,000 ballots. That's how it goes to criminal intent, among other things. The signature, the ballot envelopes are going to be a part of this. They didn't do signature verification. How many of these ballot envelopes had signatures that just did not even match? Like not even close. Like the guy's name was John Doe and they signed it Matthew McConaughey or Jack Smith, but his name's John Doe. All right, number three, it does not name any alleged criminals, redacted or otherwise. It gives no insight into who they think might have committed a crime. So this is investigating elections is a lot different in some ways than any other crime, right? Because with other crime, you have the crime and then you're trying to figure out who did it. With elections, you first have to find out if there actually was a crime because they've kept the evidence so close to their chest. Now, we've uncovered enough evidence to suggest that, yes, there was a crime that was committed here. Now, elections have chain of custody. They have all sorts of things in order to ensure that if a crime is committed, you can trace it back and go through the lineage and the progression of that crime. So, you should know. And granted, I'm saying this in a perfect world, which Fulton County is the exact opposite of a perfect world. And so it's going to be very difficult to get through this. But in a perfect world, you would be able to track each ballot envelope specifically to who checked it, to the individual, right? You remember in the Kerry Lake case, they had the closed circuit television cameras, the security cameras that were zoomed in on the guy. They know who that guy is. They know his name. They know his address. He's a contract worker, whatever the case might be. And each click he made on that screen is logged to his ID. Now, again, this is how they have kind of like a last resort, so to speak, in getting accountability. They all use the same admin login for their EMS admin on Dominion systems. So that's why I'm saying it's going to be very difficult to go back. If they have security cameras, they can go and look at logs and see when certain things were done on certain machines and compare that with the same timestamp on security cameras. Sure, maybe. But so that's how elections are different here. And that's when he says it doesn't name any criminals. Well, I mean, again, this is also a political thing here, and you can destroy people that maybe weren't involved, that had no business being involved, or excuse me, that had no business in the crime that was committed, I should say. Number 4, the witnesses are largely drawn from MAGA people on the Georgia State Election Board and then election fraud hobbyists. Okay. Dr. Johnston, Janelle King, I couldn't tell you. I mean, prior to all of this going down, and you know, because Dr. Jan did get to speak at like a Republican event, and I think she is, you know, a Republican member on the board, but she's not like overtly pro-Trump that I've ever seen, ever. She has conducted herself in the most nonpartisan way on the board. Same with Janelle King. I couldn't tell you. I know her husband's running for Secretary of State, but I mean, is that like a crazy thing to have your husband running against a horrible candidate in Brad Raffensperger? I mean, to replace him, Gabe Sterling is picking up that mantle. I mean, it makes sense. But I just don't know where they're coming off with drawn from the MAGA. Garland Favorito's a burn bro. I'm pretty sure Garland Favorito said he voted for Bernie Sanders. He was not full-blown MAGA in any way, shape, or form. Now, he may have become MAGA. I don't know. I know he spoke at a Trump rally in 2022, I think. Maybe it was I think it was in 2022. I know he spoke at a Trump rally in Georgia. But yeah, again, this is, you know, just the smear that they're putting out there, and it's just unfortunate. And then the election fraud hobbyists, and this is referring again to Joe Rossi, Kevin Moncla, Phil Davis, David Cross, Bob Couvert, Melissa. I don't know if Melissa. We'll just leave it at Melissa. You know, these people that did incredible work, and they are quote unquote hobbyists, but that's pretty sad that hobbyists found all this and the professionals did not. That statement right there by Stephen Richer, I think is probably worse than what he's like kind of insinuating here, that, oh, they're taking the word of hobbyist. No, their research is impeccable. Their research is very thorough. They've analyzed not just the crimes that were committed, the legal aspects of it, but they've explored alternatives. They've explored potential explanations, and they've asked for explanations. They've gone to these officials, and all of this is documented. And so, you know, for Richard to say that like these are election hobbyists, that's an insult not just to the hobbyists by, you know, implying that because they're hobbyists they don't know what they're doing, but it's a bigger insult. Or maybe not an insult, but a bigger call to question on the actual investigators that missed all of this, or that gaffed us on it and lied to us about all this. That's a horrible statement to make there, Richard. That's a terrible statement, especially when he was on the show with Kevin Moncla on Why We Vote, and didn't have answers to things. You know, the answer that well, there wasn't a crime. There wasn't a crime, or it didn't change the outcome. That's what we're resorting to right now. Number 5, no witness with actual election administration. This one you can debunk in 2 seconds. I think Bridget Thorne is in there. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm pretty sure Bridget Thorne is in there. She's got 9 years as a poll manager. Susan Voiles, I believe, is also one of the people. And these people, they're redacted, but they're all unmasked. Like, you can easily tell who these people are. It's so stupid. Like, if you're gonna redact a name, don't say so-and-so redacted was nominated to the state election board in 2022 and is now the vice chair. I mean, come on, really? Why do you even redact the name at that point? I mean, you can go on Google and type in who became vice chair of the state election board in Georgia in 2022. Oh, Dr. Jan Johnston. I mean, why would you redact those names and then put that out there like that? Let me pull the document up, and I'll show you guys what I mean. So this is my article that I wrote earlier this week on it, and I'm pretty sure I included the document. I know I included the document. I did predict it, though. Remember this article? January 30th. Gateway Pundit obtained the report allegedly used to secure the search warrant. Yup. You guys heard it here first. Well, I don't think it was actually here. It was me that you heard it from, but it was on Gateway Pundit, so it wasn't technically here. Stand by. Let me get this right here. The affidavit for the warrant. All right, sorry. So here is, and I'm going to read through this on a show sometime over the weekend, maybe Sunday afternoon. I'll be doing a premium stream. Let me get to the redacted names. Georgia resident redacted was a chemical engineer and taught at a technical college. Okay. Those are very big keys if you're trying to figure out who it is. So that's witness one. But then it says here, witness one filed a complaint with the Georgia State Election Board on July 8th, 2022. That's public record. You can look that up. Oh, so July 8th, 2022, we need to go and look up those records from the State Election Board, and then boom, we've unredacted the witness. Like, why would you do that? And it even goes and tells you what the complaint alleges, that there were 17,852, ballot images in there. This is the FBI either over redacting or being ridiculously careless with their redactions. It's one of the two. Either the FBI agent that wrote this probable cause affidavit, he either felt that these names needed to be redacted for their safety, which I don't, most of this is out in the open, right? Or he either felt they needed to be redacted for their safety and failed to fully redact it, any identifying information, and that could lead to whatever. It's just, I don't know. It's really stupid. But to the point here, let me look up this 25 to Richard's point here. Right here. Witness number 8 was a poll manager during the 2020 presidential election and had been a poll manager for over 25 years. She was asked to work during the risk limiting audit. So let's go back to Stephen Richer. No witnesses with actual election administration. She has more experience at 25 years. That one person has more experience than Richard does in election administration. One person, more experience than Richard. Bridget Thorne, I think, is also mentioned in there with 9 years as a poll manager. So there's a combined 34 years of election administration. But the idea that you have to be an election administrator in order to somehow understand fraud and be able to investigate fraud and look for fraud, that's categorically absurd. And then the last one aligns with that. Surprised this, oh, well, it doesn't necessarily. This is the indict a ham sandwich, right? Surprised this got to probable cause, but I guess the beauty of these is that there isn't somebody representing the defendant explaining how these processes work. He had his opportunity to come and explain the processes. I feel like we crushed him in that interview. And he had his opportunity to explain them, but he couldn't explain them. And some of them he did explain, like, there's no signatures on the poll tapes. Okay, well, that's just an oversight. That's just a technicality. No, it's not. That's chain of custody. That's evidence that would be dismissed if you tried to bring that in a court case, in a criminal court case. If you lose chain of custody on evidence, it's going to most likely be dismissed unless you can somehow, reestablish it. Oh, that's a beard hair. But the election administration, this kind of ties to the point we had last night on Why We Vote, where we were doing the Mark Elias meltdown that he had, where, he's saying that these third parties should not be allowed to go out there and clean the voter rolls. They shouldn't be allowed to submit people names from the voter rolls to be removed after investigating them and finding out that they live in illegal addresses, they are dead, they moved out of the state, they no longer live here, they moved to another country, whatever the case might be. Mark Elias doesn't want those people being removed because they're third-party people that are doing it, including the DOJ. He refers to the DOJ as a third party, and which is kind of absurd to me, considering they're directly representative of candidates that are on the ballots, the president, You know, they represent the federal government legally. And they somehow can't clean voter rolls. Candidates do it. Candidates can clean voter rolls. They can submit names to be removed. But Mark Elias doesn't want that to happen. I'm telling you guys, the 20-minute clip that we played last night on Why We Vote, Mark Elias is terrified. I firmly believe Mark Elias is genuinely concerned about what this is going to lead to. And he's trying to get out in front of it by saying, you know, this is what we need to do, but also this is what Trump is going to do. This is what Trump is going to do. And I need to be on the record here. None of it's ever going to come to fruition. Nothing that he recommended in that video last night will ever come to be law. Maybe rules, maybe, but it can't be law. So wildly unconstitutional. But that leads to these two truth posts from President Trump. Was this yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. This one's a little long. We cannot let the Democrats get away with no voter ID any longer. These are horrible, disingenuous cheaters. They have all sorts of reasons why it shouldn't be passed. And then boldly laugh in the back rooms after their ridiculous presentations. If it weren't such a serious matter, it would be considered a total joke. No voter ID is even crazier and more ridiculous than men playing in women's sports, open borders, or transgender for everyone. Republicans must put this at the top of every speech. It can't be miss. It is a can't miss for re-election in the midterms and beyond. That's an interesting statement. It is a can't miss for re-election in the midterms and beyond. Even Democrats agree, 85%, that there should be voter ID. It's only the political leaders, crooked losers like Schumer and Jeffries, that have no shame and explain why it's racist and every other thing that they can think of now. This is an issue that must be fought and must be fought now. If we can't get it through Congress, there are legal reasons why this scam is not permitted. Very interesting statement there. There are legal reasons why this scam cannot be permitted, is not permitted. I will be presenting them shortly in the form of an executive order. I hope the Supreme Court realizes, as they painstakingly review the very simple topic of country-saving tariffs, those same tariffs that have been used by other countries against the USA to drain it of its treasure and security for many years, and all sorts of other things that are making our country rich, powerful, and safe again, that these corrupt and deranged Democrats, even if they ever gain power, will not only be adding 2 states to our roster of 50 with all of the baggage there too, but will also pack the court with a total of 21 Supreme Court justices, their dream, which they will submit easily and rapidly when they immediately move to terminate the filibuster, probably in the first week or sooner. Our country will never be the same if they allow these demented and evil people to knowingly and happily destroy it. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald J. Trump. Very long one there. He had another shorter one. Probably could have read this one and been okay. The Democrats refuse to vote for voter ID or citizenship. The reason is very simple. They want to continue to cheat in elections. This was not what our founders desired. I've searched the depths of legal arguments not yet articulated or vetted on this subject, and will be presenting an irrefutable one in the very near future. There will be voter ID for the midterm elections, whether approved by Congress or not. Also, the people of our country are insisting on citizenship and no mail-in ballots, with exceptions for military, disability, illness, or travel. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Very interesting that President Trump is saying that he can do this no matter what. I like that. I like that. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that executive order. I'm kind of doing the rants as they come in for the most part. So let me jump over. We got a rant here from Super Buff Shaft. And I don't think I had it pulled out like that. Bri, we need to get the Gateway Pundit White House reporter to ask I gotta Super Buff Shaft. I'm sorry, but I cannot read that. I know it's kind of complicated, but there's issues there. They need to get that woman and the FBI contact with her. Is the DOJ going to look at the mass violations from the Arizona audits and all info on the multi-state GBI rig? I'm with you. Jordan is the current White House correspondent, I believe, and he's doing a freaking amazing job. All right, let's keep moving. Again, I will come back to the that affidavit at some point, probably tomorrow. So let's jump into this right here, this story here. Judge rejects Trump administration's effort to obtain Michigan voter data. U.S. District Judge Hala Jarboe, who was born in Iraq. We looked this up. Trump appointee, but born in Iraq, which is kind of interesting. And again, you know, I don't know how I feel about foreign-born judges in this country. I feel like there's too much potential for conflict there. All right. Even if they're U.S. citizens. Right. And of course they would have to be a U.S. citizen, but it is interesting that, you know, Trump appointed her, and Trump also appointed Alina Habba, who I believe is also Iraqi. I don't know if she's Iraqi born, but she's also Iraqi, and she's a badass. So that's pretty cool. U.S. District Judge Hala Jarboe granted a request from Michigan officials to dismiss the lawsuit from the Justice Department seeking voter registration data from the state, finding that the federal voting laws do not require the records to be disclosed. I call bullshit. I call absolute bullshit on that. Judges in Oregon and California have also rejected attempts to force those states to hand over their voter rolls. The Justice Department sought an electronic copy, including full names, birth dates, addresses, and either driver's license numbers or social security numbers. Jarboe found that 3 federal laws, the Help America Vote Act, the National Voter Registration Act, and the Civil Rights Act, do not allow the U.S. to obtain the voting records. She also warned that interpreting the National Voter Registration Act to require the disclosure of private information submitted for voter registration, quote, would potentially cause the statute to impose an unconstitutional burden on the right to vote guaranteed by the First Amendment. First and foremost, the First Amendment does not guarantee the right to vote. Second of all, the government gives you the Social Security number. So it is their information, technically speaking, right? It's their information. Also, all these states give away our voter information to professors at universities, to private NGOs, the ERIC Election Registration Information Center. Like, they already give all this stuff away to make it sound like, you know, somehow the federal government is going to be overburdensome with it is crazy. There's never been an audit of our voter rolls by the federal government. There's never been an audit of federal spending. I mean, that's the same logic they use. They're using the same logic with like SNAP and Medicare and Medicaid. They're using that same logic, Social Security, that if the government has this information, they can do harmful things. Meanwhile, we're getting our asses ripped the fuck off. But and like, not like literally like ripped off, but like we're getting ripped off. And they're like, it's okay. We can't do an audit. It's never been done before. Absolutely bonkers. Got another case here. Oh, this is a good one. And I'm going to take a quick break here. I'm going to play this clip of Steve Bannon with John Solomon talking about J6 and how the government projects what they're going to do, or the deep state, I should say, not the government. The deep state projects what they're about to do. Here, check this out.
You've got a pretty explosive story you put up at midnight last night on Just the News. Let me get this correct. A year before January 6th, the FBI knew there might be some consternation about the election, given the Democrats already wargaming it. They thought this thing through, and they actually had plans specifically for January 6th, sir?
Yeah, they did. They had a tabletop exercise that they ran in Boston in August of 2020, 5 months before January 6th occurred. The memos, which Kash Patel just turned over to Congress, he just found them recently, turned them over to Congress at the request of Chairman Barry Loudermilk, who's in charge of the J6 investigation now in the House, show that the FBI knew there was a strong possibility of a hanging election or a contested election, that both sides appeared to be agitated and could likely carry out that agitation to the point of violence. And they even devised very specific strategies. And one of them is to embed informants inside the groups where the most likely political violence or political agitation might occur. That is something that the FBI did. We had 24 informants on the ground on the morning of January 6th. The second thing they recommended was mass prosecutions, even for the most minor of crimes. Exactly what the FBI did after January 6th. Now, there are two big things about that strategy. It's pretty clear the strategy was hatched months before, and that's what they carried out. It's not the strategy they used for the political violence at BLM and the far left conducted all throughout the summer and fall of 2020. So a very clear double standard. The second thing is they did embed informants in a lot of groups, including left and right groups, Antifa and right-wing groups, and they got lots of intelligence suggesting a bad episode would occur. We now know from Chairman Barry Loudermilk that while those warnings were very strong from the informants, the preparations and the warnings from the FBI to their brethren in the Capitol in Washington, D.C. did not exist. They didn't pass on the warnings from the informants. So two failed examples of the Chris Wray era of the FBI. Knowing something was going to happen, implementing a strategy that hurt conservatives but not liberals, and not warning the people who could actually prevent the violence from occurring. That is the legacy of the Chris Wray FBI. It's what we now have out and open. These documents are now out there for everybody to see. Pretty stunning, though maybe not so stunning given what we've learned about the FBI.
Is there any part of this that shows that that Bill Barr and Chris Wray briefed the President of the United States, or briefed his staff, or briefed senior people at the White House after the tabletop exercise and after they came up with a plan of how to get informants? Is there any evidence at all that people that should have known about this were actually informed about it?
No, it doesn't look like the Attorney General knew, Bill Barr.
That's crazy. That's crazy that the president wasn't briefed on this.
Or the brass, at least not as of now. There's no documentation showing that. There's no mention of it in the documents even suggesting that we alert the Attorney General or the Homeland Security Department or the Capitol Police or the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police. So it looks like the insular sort of pillared FBI existed again. These are the same diseases that affected the FBI before 9/11, and you're starting to see the same thing. You plan for something, you don't create the scenario where that planning actually results in success. It results in failure, and the American people are the big loser. January 6th was a preventable attack. As was 9/11. We now know that from the 9/11 report. The parallels between the two are really remarkable. And I think the Chris Wray era, a lot of people talk about the James Comey era. There's plenty of reason to talk about James Comey, but he was a much shorter-termed FBI director. Chris Wray was a much more consequential, longer FBI director, and perhaps caused more harm to the institution, into security in America, into law and order in America. He went after Catholics. He went after...
All right, we can land that there, but that is absolutely fascinating that John Solomon is making the comparison of the Fedsurrection to 9/11 and how the FBI failed. And as he's sitting here telling us that the FBI planned tabletop exercises and implemented them. And, if you've seen Codex 9/11 and you come away thinking that 9/11 was anything outside of a government job, to what extent, we don't know, but anybody that watches Codex 9/11, Brad Zerbo's documentary on it, fantastic, over at Badlands Media, is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. So fantastic. There it is again. What was it? Event 201. They planned COVID. They tabletopped COVID. They tabletopped the Hunter Biden laptop at the Aspen Institute. Like, it's very remarkable how they tabletop all these things, and then lo and behold, holy shit, they come to fruition. They come to fruition. Meanwhile, just a headline here, basically. It's 2021 all over again. Washington Post, FBI cited debunked claims to obtain warrant for Fulton County vote, record documents show. Here's another one. Let me see if I can get this next one up here. Oh, hold on. That's not it. This is it. So that's the Washington Post right there. Here's the New York Times. I'm not it's behind a paywall. Georgia ballot inquiry originated with election denier in Trump White House. Washington Post there. Former Trump campaign lawyer sparked FBI probe. Let's see if it says debunked in here. Let's see. Control F. Debunked. Widespread. No. Okay. All right. So CNBC might have actually gotten it right. Let's just read. I haven't read this article. A referral by Kurt Olson. The document, an affidavit, said the FBI conducting criminal investigation. Investigation originated. Olson worked for efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Yeah. It's like it's 2020. We're going to have to deal with this. It's going to be widespread. It's going to be widespread fraud from the mainstream media. That's what we should flip it on them. Be prepared for widespread fraud from the mainstream media by claiming there was no widespread fraud. Again. They don't have the fact checkers, though. The fact checkers have lost their credibility. You don't see PolitiFact and USA Fact Check, and like you don't see any of these fact checkers getting any relevance anymore. They're all just completely irrelevant because everything that we've been saying turns out to be right, and they lose faith and they stop putting it out there. They stop. I think they're still. I think they're still doing it. They're just not relevant. Like nobody gives a shit anymore. Like what are you going to do? Cite Snopes and be like, "Well, Snopes said that this was false," and it'll be like, "Yeah, Snopes says everything's false if it promotes a MAGA agenda. That's it. If it is favorable light to Donald Trump, Snopes will tell you it's fake, no matter what. I do want to read a little bit of that Washington Post article. So let's just cover a little bit. You know what, guys? I do have to say I am going to shut down the Twitter stream. I do this each time. We're at about an hour and a half now. I usually go about 3 hours on these shows, so there's probably about an hour and a half left. So if you're on Twitter, jump over to rumble.com/CannCon or YouTube. At CannCon Actual on YouTube, or if you type it in, it's youtube.com/CannCon1 with just one N in CannCon. So CANCON 1. So jump over to YouTube or Rumble. Rumble's probably my favorite of the two platforms, of all the platforms. But I do have to take down Twitter. Their API does not integrate very well with Rumble Studio. And so, again, I do this. This is all out of my own time, my own whatever. And so in order to, I tell you guys this flat out, it's a financial decision. It's a financial decision because you get, you make more revenue. And this is 3 hours on a Valentine's Day. So yeah. So thank you guys all so much for watching over on Twitter. Appreciate it. And I'll see you guys. If you jump over, I'll see you in the chat. If you did cross over, let me know in the chat, in the Rumble chat, and I'll hang out for a minute, and then we'll get back into the show. All right. And then there was two, YouTube and Rumble. YouTube and Rumble. So there we go. PJ, get your head out of the gutter. Uh-oh, what did PJ Corrigan say? Don't play with us, ladies. We know what a Dutch oven. A Dutch oven is not your head in the gutter. A Dutch oven is not a sexual term. Do I have to explain what a Dutch oven is? Let's put it this way. It's when you break wind and then you pull the covers over somebody's head, and yeah, that's a Dutch oven. I can't believe this is where they show. We get rid of the X people and we go to explaining what a Dutch oven is. Mag says talking about a real Dutch oven that you cook with, not fart under. All right, let's try and get a little bit serious here. Let's get a little bit serious here. We can hit another sponsor. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's hit another sponsor, and then we'll get back into the show. You may have heard about Emerald Med's CBD products, but let me tell you about something else that's not well known, but is incredibly powerful. It's called Ace Man An. ACEMANNAN. It's a compound from aloe vera that massively supports your body's stem cell production, cell health, immune system function, and it matters because your body replaces about 1% of its cells every single day. As we age or we have health issues, we produce it less efficiently. The thing is almost no aloe products have Ace Man An because it breaks down after they harvest it, and you can't get enough from eating raw aloe because aloe's laxative compound. That would be brutal. However, Emerald Med created a stabilized Ace Man An supplement with the laxative compound, with the laxative compound removed. Okay, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It's called Aloe RX, and they made it for pharmacies, and now it's available to the public. I want to explain the value of Aloe RX. Stem cell injections can have amazing results, but they can cost $10,000 to $40,000 per treatment. Aloe RX isn't the same thing as stem cell injections, but it massively supports your own body's stem cell production for less than $100. You could literally give your body this for 16 years for the same price as one stem cell treatment. For people who don't need something extreme like stem cell injection, but want to help your body significantly, this is arguably the best value on the market. The longer you take it, the more compounding support that you have. If you want to support a company that supports our channel and free speech with ads, check out Emerald Med's Aloe RX. Click the link below to learn more and get 30% off of Aloe RX today. I think I'm going to have to take me some of that. I've been thinking about doing stem cells in my shoulder. And I think now, because if you go to Mexico, it's a lot cheaper. It's like a couple $1,000s, but it's still expensive as hell. And if I could just take Aloe RX and get the same benefits, I'm all there. Okay. So this is a Washington Post article here. FBI cited debunked claims to obtain warrant for Fulton County vote records documents show. None of these claims have been debunked, guys. That's the thing. The FBI relied heavily on previously debunked claims of widespread irregularities in Georgia as it persuaded a federal judge to sign off. Now, I talked about this during the week, but why was this not cited to anything? Where are these previously debunked claims? The fact checkers are gone, right? We know the fact checkers are gone. So is that who debunked these claims? Because I'm curious. I would love to read any debunking of these claims. I've read these claims for the last 4 years more than anybody on earth outside of the investigators that wrote the reports and that found all this stuff. The team that did it. Outside of them, I've read this report more times than anybody else. And I've never seen anybody debunk any of it. Many of the irregularities they raised, including claims of duplicate ballots and missing ballot images, both of those are true. Both of those are absolutely true, have been previously explained by county officials as the types of routine errors. Routine errors. Washington Post. Let me pull up the Rossi clip here. Let me pull up the Rossi clip, and you tell me if this is a routine error.
Here's the part that I think is really concerning that you guys never got a chance to see. So this is a chart completed by our experts, okay? And I think there were some comments around, well, maybe somebody just made an administrative error, and we had a stack of ballots over here that somebody thought weren't scanned, so we just grabbed that stack of ballots and we ran them through the scanner again. Human error. This chart is very complicated, but let me explain this chart in very simple terms using some colored paper. This is what happened, and this is what our experts can prove and have proven, and this is what y'all missed because we were not given a chance to rebut. All right.
That's the key right there. You all missed this because we were not given a chance to rebut. So Charlene McGowan, the Secretary of State's office, got to sit up there and say it was just human error, technical glitch, right? No, it wasn't. But they were not afforded the opportunity to rebut this.
So this stack of yellow ballots. All right, we got pink ballots, yellow ballots, and I hope you all pay attention to this. Yes, James left, and blue ballots. And let's say we run these ballots through one scanner. Okay, scanner one, batch one, scanner one, batch two, scanner two, batch three, scanner three. So the thought is, well, maybe somebody was in a hurry and they just said, hey, late in the day, we forgot to scan this batch of ballots, go scan them. That's not what happened. Here's what happened. And I'm going to ask you one question. Is this administrative error? Somebody, I don't know who, and I don't even know why, took ballots from this batch, not necessarily from the top, maybe from the middle.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, flipped them in reverse order.
Yep.
Okay. And then they went to the next batch. Again.
Yep.
Not taken from the top, I'm not taken from the middle. And made a new batch. And guess what they did with that new batch? They took that batch and ran it through a different scanner, let's say scanner 4, and oh, by the way, on a different day. So my question is that an administrative error?
Nope.
I believe that was intentional human intervention. And I'm not a lawyer, but the lawyers tell me that intentional human intervention is the predicate for election fraud. And again, you guys missed that little demonstration because we were not permitted to rebut the present out.
So there it is. And I think that that's a very significant when you see outlets like the Washington Post, this is why they have lost almost half of their staff, because they're just trash. They're pure trash. Many of the irregularities that they raised, including claims of duplicate ballots and missing ballot images, have been previously explained by county officials as the types of routine errors that frequently occur, are typically corrected in the moment, and are not significant enough to sway the outcome of an election. Independent reviews have backed up that conclusion. Washington Post does not cite a single backup independent review that backs up that conclusion. They don't cite any of the comments that were made here. They just regurgitated what they were told. They just were told this. They didn't do any actual investigative work. If they had done the investigative work, they would have seen a post like the one that I just shared with you. And let me see if I can real quick find the image that that Phil Davis shared about this. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's the image that is on that board that he's holding up. Oh, there's Jeff Lenberg. What is this? Oh, this looks like either stolen election or Professor Clements his documentary that he did, Media. I thought I shared that video, or not that video, the image. I did not. Damn. Hey, there's a good time right there. Cannabis amnesty box. All right, so I don't have that file handy, but Ash and I have done Why We Vote on with Phil Davis. We did like a 7-part series with him. And so that's what they did. It'd be like having a deck of cards, and you have like 10 decks of cards, and you just take like 5 cards from here, 3 cards from here, 2 cards from there, 10 cards from here, put them all together, and you made a whole new deck of cards. But the problem is if you shuffle the cards, you're like, oh, well, this deck's blue. This one doesn't have a king's face on it. It has, such and such, a Trump face on it. The cards are all different. With ballots, they're not different. So it's difficult. It's more difficult to tell the little nuance that you're able to figure out how these ballots differ. So anyways, that's the whole point right there. The Washington Post, I mean, I don't think anybody here is trusting anything coming out of the Washington Post. But the missing ballot images, here you go, right here, straight from the horse's mouth. Fulton County, admit you did not preserve until the present time the majority of ballot images for in-person voting for the November 3rd, 2020 election original machine count. Admitted. Okay. And so you might say that this was a technical glitch, human error. We don't know that. We don't know that for sure. How do you just delete these images accidentally? How do you delete all the hash validation files that would validate that these images were not altered accidentally? And why is it not documented? Dr. Johnston says she's asked for the documentation of it. There's no documented record of it. So bottom line is that we're going through this debunked claim again, like 2021. We're going through the debunking phase. So just remember, there is no widespread evidence that the mainstream media has done any investigation into any of this stuff. They just regurgitate the same tired talking points that they are fed by people like Brad Raffensperger. Did you guys see Brad Raffensperger's newest post? Oh man, this is juicy. What in the hell is a Secretary of State? Where is it? What in the hell is the Secretary of State for a state, not the Secretary of State for the United States, the Secretary of State for Georgia, meeting with Israel's Consul General, Eitan Weiss, at the Capitol? We had a productive conversation focused on strengthening economic ties, fostering innovation, and identifying opportunities for collaboration between the state of Georgia and Israel. Why? All right. Let's play this clip. So this is this was a hilariously horrifying, because it is scary that this guy was somehow quote unquote elected. But this is the sheriff of Mecklenburg County, which is, I believe, Charlotte Mecklenburg. And this guy is in a lot of trouble. He's running for re-election. He's had a lot of complaints levied against him. Apparently, he told his deputies that they can drive people to strip clubs and bars. Just an atrocious time that he's having as sheriff. And it just got significantly worse with this hearing. Watch how dumb these people are. Like, this guy has no business in this role if he doesn't fundamentally know what his role is. Check this out.
First, if I were to classify your position as the highest law enforcement officer in the county, would that be a fair description?
That's correct.
And as such, you made reference earlier that you're a constitutional office. My colleague made reference that there are constitutional divisions amongst responsibilities between us and you. What branch of government do you operate under?
Mecklenburg County.
What branch of government do you operate under, Sheriff?
Constitution of the United States.
Correct. That is what establishes the branches of government. I'm asking which branch you fall under.
Mecklenburg County. I'm a duly sworn Mecklenburg County Sheriff. We answer to the people of Mecklenburg County.
This was not where I was anticipating getting stuck. Are you aware of how many branches of government there are?
No.
For the sake of debate, I will move on and say there are 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, judicial. Of those 3, which do you believe you fall under?
I believe I fall under the last one.
Would you say it to me?
Judicial.
You are incorrect, sir. You fall under the executive. And as a member of the executive, what do you believe your primary function is?
Care and custody of those in my custody at the Mecklenburg County Detention Center.
Oh,
that is part of what your responsibilities as sheriff are, sure. But as a member of the executive, your primary function is to execute upon the law, to enforce the law.
That was embarrassing. That was so embarrassing. I actually kind of feel bad that that guy was put on blast like that, but it needs to happen. It needs to happen. You have no business in that role if you are that obtuse and that you don't understand what. I mean, you don't. How many branches of government are there? I don't know. Or do you know how many? No, I don't. What branch do you fall under after he explains it? Judicial. Judicial. Are you a marshal now? Man. Good job, Charlotte, North Carolina, Mecklenburg. You guys totally got free and fair elections up there. They're so free and fair. You hired a guy that doesn't even know what his job is. Doesn't even know what his job is. All right, where are we going to go to next? First and foremost, I took down that screen. Let's jump into this story. Small Business Administration suspends 111,620 California borrowers suspected of committing $8.6 billion in pandemic-era fraud. These people, interesting, they were taking advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program. But I think the most interesting thing about this story is how they uncovered this. And it's kind of concerning. Since day one, the Trump Small Business Administration has worked to crack down on an estimated $200 billion in pandemic-era fraud that went unaddressed during the Biden administration. The agency recently partnered with Palantir to expand the nationwide investigation into PPP and EIDL abuse, and continues to coordinate with federal law enforcement partners to pursue recovery, civil penalties, and criminal sentences. Now, if you jump over here to this FedScoop article, SBA turns to Palantir after Minnesota fraud allegations spark national probe. Small Business Administration, and this article was from January 9th, so last month. They signed a $300,000 contract with Palantir. The contract's description read SBA Fraud Prevention Pilot and Boot Camp, and it ends in April. The contract was made public after Kelly Loeffler announced that the agency had suspended 6,900 Minnesota borrowers for alleged fraud. When asked about the Palantir contract, small business spokeswoman Maggie Clemens said, quote, "We're now expanding our investigation nationwide as part of a broader zero tolerance policy on fraud." Jump down here. It says the contract marks Palantir's first public agreement with the Small Business Administration and underscores the expansion beyond defense contracting for the federal government. Palantir is also quietly working with the Education Department on its revamped foreign funding portal and is in consideration for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services National Provider Directory project. I'm very, very torn on this story. Part of me, the libertarian small L part of me, is saying, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. But it's also saying we shouldn't be doing any of that stuff in the first place. First off, we shouldn't have a Department of Education. That should be a state's issue. Medicare and Medicaid, we should not have either of those. And if we got rid of them, we would significantly improve the healthcare system, especially the cost. And that's how you get rid of that, right? Or that's how you get those costs down. You get rid of it. And we'll cover that in a second. There was a fantastic article from Zero Hedge this week. Loved it. It's not like exceptionally well written or anything like that. Just the information in it is fantastic. But while I don't want any of that government bureaucracy, just absolutely destroying the American citizens, the American taxpayer, I also don't want Palantir somehow becoming like this overpowering, all-powerful, and granted, it'll happen no matter what, right? I mean, these organizations, to think of what Amazon, Google, YouTube, probably Rumble, with the capabilities that these organizations have with the amount of data that they have from us. All of them, any device that's on your phone. So, I kind of understand that. The same token, I guess if it's going to clean up the fraud and help bring this thing under control, so be it. Somebody's got to do it, right? It's got to happen. It's got to happen. Is Palantir the right company to do it? I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. Peter Thiel, no thanks. But again, somebody's got to do it. Let's jump into that Zero Hedge article because this was fantastic, man. And this is where I rest, okay? When government subsidies stopped, Doritos got 15% cheaper, basically saying that, hey, these states that cut snack and junk food out of SNAP, they had to compete again. They actually had to compete for your money. And so what did they do? They lowered prices to be more competitive with the cheaper store brands because people didn't have free money from the government anymore to go out there and give to PepsiCo. And so they lowered prices. About 20 cents of every SNAP dollar goes to sweetened beverages, candy, salty snacks, and sugar. In fact, soft drinks alone are the single largest category of SNAP purchases. Do you guys remember when we had the Sodagate? Do you guys remember that? Where like influencers were saying like it's ridiculous that we were even thinking about taking soda off of SNAP. And these people were out there, posting about that. MAGA, conservative, whatever. And then we found out that they were getting paid thousands of dollars to put those posts out there. Fake AF. Let me see if I can get a list of those accounts, because those accounts are disgusting and they should be unfollowed if you follow them. What X users were found to have received funding from Big Soda when they tried to take it off SNAP? Let's check this out. According to Grok, none of the influencers reportedly disclosed the payments, leading to accusations of undisclosed sponsored content. Ian Miles Chong is among. It says specific X users, influencers named in reports and exposures have posted similar pro-soda SNAP messages during this push, including Ian Miles Chong, frequently cited for posts defending soda access. Others in coordinated wave per reports from Sorter and Daily Beast. I think that's Nick Sorter that they're talking about. It doesn't list them. Remember when a bunch of accounts on X cried how people should be able to buy whatever they want? Yeah. All right. Well, I was hoping to get a list, but I'm not going to sit here and go crazy looking for it. But getting back into this article, I'm sorry, guys. I'm going off. My mind is like, I get focused on something. So the bottom line here is, these corporations are making so much money. Like, I think PepsiCo is making like $2 or $3 billion a year off of SNAP. How do we compete with that? They can charge whatever the hell they want, and Snap is just going to give more. And so what does that end up doing? They charge more, and then we have to pay more. Yeah, I mean, they make some great points here. So when the government stopped subsidizing demands for their product, PepsiCo had to do something that they hadn't needed to do in years: compete. This is what happens. This is what the free market does. It forces companies to be more efficient, to cut prices. and to pass savings on to their customers. Zoom out and you can see just how much of price inflation in our daily lives is due directly to government spending. Before we even get into monetary policy like printing money, when a guaranteed buyer shows up with a bottomless wallet, the price goes up. Common sense. This is why I can't, this is why the democratic socialist movement is so dangerous. Socializing everything, putting the government in charge of everything is going to drive these prices through the roof and crush us. Just look at college tuition. In 1965, Congress passed the Higher Education Act and began backing student loans with federal dollars. Since then, tuition has risen roughly 3 times faster than inflation. A year at a private university cost $2,800 in 1963. It now costs over $85,000. Let's see how much. How much was $2,800 in 1960? How much? Hold on. In 1963, how much is $2,800 in today's rate? So $2,800 in 1963 is worth about $29,000 today. Average inflation rate 3.82%, CPI 30.6%, and the CPI in 2026 is 30.6. Excuse me. Today it's 324. Excuse me. Yawn. That's incredibly rude. So $29,000, and the average tuition is $85,000. That's almost 3 times that, like they said, 3 times that the rate's going up there. All right, let's get back into this. Healthcare prices have risen dramatically over the same period. The U.S. now spends, hold on. We're not to healthcare yet. Hold on. For every dollar increased in subsidized students' loans, tuition rose 60 cents. 60 cents for every dollar. That's crazy. Healthcare is even worse. Before Medicaid and Medicare in 1965, the government share of healthcare spending was about 31%. Today, it's roughly 64%. Medicaid spending alone has grown from $13 billion in 1975 to over $900 billion today. So let's do the math on that. How much in 1975 is $5 trillion in today's rate? Or was it? No, it wasn't 5 trillion. Was it 5 trillion? 13 billion. Excuse me. I'm getting ahead of myself. 13 billion. I'm going to the next one. How much is $13 billion in today's rate? $78 billion. Listen to that. Listen to that. Let me read that again, knowing what $13 billion in 1975 is by today's standard. Before Medicare and Medicaid were created in 1965, the government's share of healthcare spending was 31%. Today, it's roughly 64%. Medicaid spending alone has grown from $13 billion in 1975 to over $900 billion today. $13 billion in today's dollars would be $78 billion. That is still $822 billion difference from what the inflated rate would be today if we continued the same exact price as 1975. But CannCon, we doubled the amount of healthcare spending, the share of how much we're spending, 31% versus 64%. Okay, so let's double the 13 billion to 26 billion, and you'd have 144 billion or 146 billion, which is still 64 billion less than what we were. That is bonkers, guys. That is insane right there. If that doesn't infuriate you, I mean, I can't wait until they do CMS. I cannot wait until we get the CMS part of this chapter, or the CMS chapter in this book, the book of Trump. I can't wait. I mean, do you guys understand if we can clean that number up and get that number back down to where it should be? 100 billion, 150 billion. Okay. I can live with that. 900 billion. Fuck no. Fuck no. And why is that? Because we're giving people SNAP benefits ad nauseum. Like everybody gets SNAP. And we're allowing them to buy shit food, which perpetuates the cycle of unhealthy people. If you're eating sugar and you're eating all the stuff from the what they say the inside of the supermarket, right? They say shop around the perimeter for all the fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, meats, proteins. Don't go into the processed stuff in the middle. That's what they do. I can't wait. I think, man. All right, let's get back into this article. I think what we're going to see coming up in the future here is going to be absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. It needs to happen sooner than later, but it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Healthcare prices have risen dramatically over the same period. The U.S. now spends nearly $5 trillion per year on healthcare, far more per capita than any other developed country. And we have one of the shortest health lifespans of any modern country. Our lifespan is like there's countries in the 80s and we're still lingering at like 77 or 78. There's countries in the 80s. Are we at 78? Are we down? Let's look this up. Lifespan, average lifespan by country. Let's look this up. Life expectancy by country. In the United States, 73.8, I'm assuming. No. Okay, here we go. United States, 61st, with 79, 82 for women, 77 for men, I'm assuming. Yeah, males, females. Okay. So let's go based on male. Ooh, Chad, 53. Nigeria, 54. Man, that is tragic. Let's go all the way down to the bottom here. Monaco, 84 for men, 88 for women. 84 men don't live much past 84. That sucks. Monaco for women, that's crazy. Micronesia. 88.85 years of age. Hong Kong, 88.5. Japan, 88. South Korea, 87. The Asians got their shit together, man. The Asians got their shit together. Maybe we should ask them what the secret is. All right. Sorry, guys. This is probably going to be the last article. It's Valentine's Day. Take it off a little early. Federal spending has risen from about 18% of GDP in the 90s to nearly 24% today. A quarter of the entire American economy is government money. A quarter of the entire American economy is government money, meaning they print more, they inject it into the system, they devalue our money, and they just print more for themselves. It's a broken system. Broken. Zero Hedge acknowledges that. Scott Bessent has publicly estimated that 10% of the federal budget, roughly $600 billion per year, is lost to outright fraud, like the Somali daycare type in Minnesota. And they don't care. They don't care. Why? I mean, they pretend they care because there's accountability. The elections are stolen. Nobody's going to get replaced over this. Tim Walz will still have a political career. Keith Ellison will still have a political career. Jacob Frey will still have a political career. All of these fraudsters, and I'm not it's not exclusively those three. Generally, broadly, anybody that's in the finance committee right now that's not talking about this, screaming it from the rooftops, passing the legislation to pull this money back, not to reel in the fraud, to pull the money back. No more of this shit. Figure it out on your own. Time to, pull up the big boy pants and be an adult. It says, then there's the legal graft. California alone received roughly $100 billion in federal grants over the past few years for DEI initiatives that produce nothing except more government jobs and contributions. Now, this is the key takeaway, and we'll land this here. This part right here is the most important part of the whole entire article. So before we do that, let's get one more word for our sponsors, and then we will wrap it up with this incredibly important part. Guys, if you still have not tried 1775 coffee, now is your chance. The 1775 starter kit just dropped with only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold, dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you are also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom is not scooped with plastic, a frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler, $170 worth of coffee and gear for just $99. This is for the ones who've seen 1775 blowing up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. Smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already. We are going to get to the piece de la résistance. And here we go. Yeah, smash that thumbs up. A little over 744 people watching. 700 people, I was going to say. But thank you guys all so much for spending your Saturday morning here and your Valentine's Day morning. Let's close out this article. I think one of the most important articles I've read on a show. Now, imagine what would happen if the government stopped subsidizing entire industries. The defense contractors billing $10,000 for a toilet seat. The universities charging $85,000 for a degree in gender studies. The healthcare system where nobody can tell what anything costs. We might finally find out how much of this economy is real. That's a tough Band-Aid right there. We may finally find out how much of this economy is actually real. And that, frankly, is what makes it so hard to fix, because so many people's livelihoods now depend on the government gravy train. The federal government borrows $2 trillion a year to keep it all going. Interest on the debt already exceeds $1 trillion annually, more than the entire military budget. And it's growing faster than any other line item. If rates stay elevated because inflation won't come down, the cost of servicing the debt crowds out everything else. If the government responds by printing money to cover the gap, inflation gets worse. And it makes sense to have a plan B that doesn't depend on Washington finding fiscal discipline before the math catches up with them. Such a fantastic article, man. Fantastic article. Let me put that in the chat if anybody wants to read that on their own. All right, there it is right there. All right, guys, I think that's going to do it for today. Let me see if we had any more rants in here. We do not have any more rants, so that will do that. I hope everybody has a fantastic holiday, Valentine's Day. I don't want to call it a holiday. I don't think it's a holiday. I'm avidly against Valentine's Day. I don't like any of the Hallmark holidays. I think it's retarded. But that being said, my wife has a very unusual request for this Valentine's Day. So I get to go here and drive around and look at all sorts of crazy dumb shit. It's not crazy dumb shit. We're going out to the stores to look at like flooring and all this stuff. So yay. That's what she wants to do for Valentine's Day. So I guess I get off easy then. And then we'll probably make dinner at home, like do something nice for dinner. S'mores. S'mores. My wife's out there in the thing. It's May 60. Go have a taco. It's a rant. What? Oh. She wanted to give me a kiss.
Oh, crap. We gave away my hair.
Oh, yeah. She did her hair a different color. All right, guys. We're going off on a tangent now. All right, guys. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Smash that thumbs up. I will at some point tomorrow. I'll do a premium stream because I got to get my hours in. So again, I just want to let you guys all know the premium streams are gaming. They're just me playing video games. They're not anything, whatever. Just if you want to hang out, I'll be in the chat. I'll be engaged. But it's like, I'm not going to put any of this type of content behind a paywall. So, but I have to put something behind there. So I'm going to kill time by playing video games. So I hope you guys, if you want to check out and hang out, you're more than welcome to for premium subscribers. Thank you guys all so much. Stay frosty. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America. Make the deep state pay for this.